is Kambutown. It was built in Unreal Engine with a focus on level design. I've used cutscenes heavily in this level to guide the character and to show them when they're going next. Cutscenes are very easy to create using the Unreal Engine 4 sequencer tool. And it's such an easy way to manage and animate all of the elements in one cutscene, including the cameras and the audio. Now, I've used cutscenes heavily in the level to guide the character. Cutscenes are placed at certain points of the level before a new encounter to lay out the next section and highlight the goal, because, as stated in 100 Principles of Game Design, if a player knows a reward is coming, they will be more motivated. This level is set in Twilight because, as Wei Yin states in Impeccable Scene Design for Game, Animation and Film, Twilight makes people feel grieved, and I wanted to get across a sense of hopelessness and poverty of this slum and just make the player feel very alone. Now, blueprints are incredibly useful in Unreal Engine 4 as they do provide a simple interface for beginners to figure out programming without worrying about any syntax, but I personally preferred programming in C# and Unity, as much of the process of programming in Unreal Engine 4 is hidden behind the UI, and I found myself getting confused as to what I can and cannot achieve within the rigid confines of a blueprint, and found it just much more difficult to get to grips with the whole idea of it. I found the lighting in Unreal to be far superior than Unity due to the many easily customizable options and quality of the indirect lighting render. Lighting is used heavily in this level to guide the player to the next point with different colour shop signs and to highlight various points of interest with street lights and such. Now, to begin the action, the player loads into a cutscene and the first thing they hear is audio of somebody angrily banging on the door. Now, this audio is critical for creating the mood, which is something was stated by Ernest Adams in Fundamentals of Game Design. This is then explained and the player motivation clarified by a short message on a tablet. The first thing that the player will see is a single enemy at the end of the alleyway. This is meant as a low-risk introduction to the combat of the game, and once defeated, the player will see a dead body strung up on the side of a truck to emphasize not only the danger the player is in, but also the body is posed as to point the way for the character. On the left is a raised platform, which the player can shoot some objects off it, and this is to indicate that there might be enemies on these raised platforms later in the level. Here I've used particle effect steam to point the way to the next encounter, increasing the difficulty slightly with more enemies. And the gun truck's headlights are also pointing the way, and the attention here is immediately moved towards the red light next to the enemy. I've used lighting at these points to highlight areas of interest, the dead body, enemy locations, and the goal of the level. Throughout the level, I've also used architecture and scaffolding to subtly point the way forward to the player. I really wanted to focus on making an environment which was compelling, felt alive, and full of detail, because, as is mentioned in 100 Principles of Game Design, games should treat their settings as living environments. I feel like the design elements in this level adequately motivate and guide the player, as well as looking pretty good. But I certainly think there are improvements to be made to the enemy AI, like improved patrolling and sensors. Using UE4 to create the level was very rewarding, as the lighting and rendering is much better than Unity, but I think that mechanics suffered due to my difficulty getting to grips with blueprints and the lack of helpful online documentation.